It was only a few days ago when I discovered that Moana 2 came out way back in December. So I'm kind of late to the party, but apparently they made a second film. For some reason, my brain kind of confused Moana 2 with the live action Moana film. Again, both of these two movies are unnecessary. As of this video, Moana live action is in production. I don't think it's gonna be good. I hope it's fun bad though, but most likely it's not gonna be good. And let's be honest, it's The Rock that probably forced the film to come out, just like he did with Black Adam. Oh boy. Ever since Black Adam, he hasn't had the best reputation ever since then. His reputation is like a Ubisoft stock market. It just kind of goes down ever since that point. You see, back when I was a kid, I actually kind of liked the first Moana film. I was a kid back then and it was just enjoyable. It's not a masterpiece or anything. It's not like good, but it's just like fun enough, like it's harmless, it's good enough. So yeah, I actually kind of liked it back then, back when I was a kid. And even today, it's still enjoyable enough. But that's pretty much it. It's not like super good or anything. Back in the 2010s, The Rock was very likable. Like, he was the Will Smith of 2000s. In the 2010s, every single film that The Rock was in would be just a smash hit. And all he had to do was to just play himself. That's pretty much it. In all of these movies, he plays literally the same character. Sometimes even the same clothes, even. You can't even tell that if these four films are different, by the way. But anyway, before we dive into Moana 2, and yeah, spoiler alert, it wasn't that good, and the movie was kind of unnecessary. But before we dive into the second film and, the live action that's eventually gonna come up, I thought that we should cover the first movie first for some context. First movie starts off with the grandma telling a story of, The Rock. Does anybody care that I call him The Rock and not Maui, his in-movie name? He plays himself, so I'm just gonna call it The Rock. Like, come on, you look at this character, you just call him The Rock. There's no way you're calling him Maui. Nobody cares. And it's funny, so I'm just gonna call him The Rock. So basically, she tells the story how The Rock, the one guy who was a hero once before, The Rock does a pull-out game. He basically takes his rock out of the Mother Nature, like quite literally, and then he escapes with it. Apparently, The Rock gives some kind of powers, and yes, his character is also furry because like he can change into animals and stuff. Do what you will with that information. But basically, our furry hero pulls out The Rock from Mother Nature, and she doesn't likes that. No, no, no. She likes to be filled up. So then there's this other third person that comes in, and it's like this Elden Ring boss, and it's like, hey, how dare you pull out, dude? You should have let me pull out. And of course, The Rock is like, no, I am the hero. Come on, I have signed a contract. I am the main character. He basically blocks the punch with his face and just dies instantly. I mean, what did you expect? This guy didn't even try to dodge or, parry or whatever. He just goes straight in, I guess. That's a good plan. I guess he's dead, right? Like, I mean, he has to be. It's not like his contract is gonna bring him back or anything like that. But anyways, he should have played more Souls games. Kind of switches back to the grandma telling the story, and this happened like 1,000 years ago. Then our focus shifts to our main protagonist, Moana. And basically, we see a scene where, the water really likes her. The water is kind of like sentient, basically, and she's the chosen one. The water gives her the stone, and then the parents come in, so the water hides. I don't know what the gender of the water is. Maybe it's probably gender fluid. Alright. I know. I'm very funny. I know. So then we see Moana grow up, and then bad things start happening to the island. There's things dying and rotting away. It's kind of like the scarlet rot from Elden Ring, so the life is being sucked out of things, and coconuts are being dry inside out. Things are pretty bad. And then she suggests that maybe we should sail and stuff, but the dad doesn't want her sailing because he was a noob back in his day and he got his friend killed. So that's why he doesn't want a woman to sail, because if he was a noob, then she's probably also a noob. So that's why he just says, yeah, you're not gonna sail, that's just not gonna happen. And then she goes to her mommy and grandma, and then grandma tells her, hey, we were once sailor once. But then bad monsters came out and they started taking us all down and stuff. So then we just banned sailing altogether. Then she goes back and tells her dad, hey, we should restore the heart, the rock, the infinity stone back to the mother nature, and fill her up back again, so that everything like stops rotting, so that scarlet rot doesn't starts to rot everything. But then the dad is very opposes this idea. He tries to throw away the rock, and oh no, the grandma has an heart attack or tuberculosis. I don't know. Bro thinks he's Arthur Morgan or Walter White. But then all of those things happen, and she's like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna sail now. She sets sail, and I kind of forgot to mention this, but the music in most of the film is pretty decent. I'm not a huge musical guy or anything, but yeah, I can agree that the music was at least a bit decent. I can't say the same for the second film, but we will get to that later. She sets sail, she goes to the rock, but she doesn't know how to navigate and stuff. They don't exactly have GPS or Google. She basically gets unconscious, and so the gender fluid entity just wakes her up. She's like, hey, we're off the course. Come on, do something about this. She tries to do something about it, but then she just flips her boat, and then she gets unconscious. And then she wakes up on the same island that Dwayne The Rock Johnson is in. Now keep this in mind, that the gender fluid entity can basically drive the boat for her, by the way. I mean, drive is not the correct nomenclature, but sail the boat for her. Just keep this in mind. This will be very important in the second film. And turns out The Rock is alive. Yay. He was gonna be the person that's gonna help her restore the rock. Of course he can't die. Like, come on, he has the power of the contract. Do you think Goku can defeat the rock? No, because he has a contract. It doesn't matter how many saints Goku has. So the rock is alive, but he's a level 1 noob also. He's like that character in Dying Light who doesn't has any weapons and armor and stuff. So he just says that he needs his gear, he needs his hook, and only then he can save her and the world basically. But before that he was actually hitting on her actually, which is very weird because The Rock is like 1,000 years old and Moana is like 18. Oh, never mind. Turns out she is 16. That makes it even worse. I guess after we figure out that, The Rock is probably the cousin of Diddy. But it's fine because he discovers what the age of consent is and he stops harassing Moana after he gets kicked in the balls, of course. Only he's a furry, but he's also the cousin of Diddy. But turns out he gains a conscience and he's like, okay, I'm not gonna, harass this woman. I'm not gonna be a PDF file. I'm just gonna steal her shit. So he tries to steal her boat and locks her up in like a cave, but she comes out, right? And then she gets on the boat, they have a little bit of an argument, and then boom, there's like a Mad Max reference, the like Mad Max enemies, and they kind of fight that off. And then she, after that whole shubungle, she says, hey, she kind of gives him this anime motivational monologue. And then, actually his tattoos are kind of like sentient too. So his tattoos are like another person basically that can talk to him in like sign language and stuff. So even the Tats is like, I'm just gonna call him Tats, and the Tats is like, hey, you know, just help the woman, bro. Come on, don't be like that. And he's like, fine, but let's get our hook first. And then they navigate, they go to the tower. Basically, like, there's this mountain, they climb the mountain, they get in the mountain, and then whoops, uh, they meet Mr. Krabs. Yeah, he's humongous right now, and I don't think he's had a good day ever since SpongeBob died of meth overdose. After Breaking Bad, Mr. Krabs hasn't been the same.
Oh my god, it's so fucking good.
The Krabby Patty secret formula, he's been trying to recreate it, so he basically gets all the important things that he can, trying every single mixture to make the Krabby Patty secret formula. But of course, he has lost his mind ever since SpongeBob died, and he has the hook of The Rock, and The Rock needs that, obviously. So then there's that whole sequence. They basically get The Rock, and now they're outside of the mountain, and now they're having an argument. You see, The Rock is demotivated because he can't really control his powers all that well anymore. He's a bit rusty. It's kind of like coming back to Marvel Rivals after like a few months. And then at night, Moana gives him an anime speech, and then he gets motivated. He practices up a bit, and now he's ready for the boss fight that he lost 1,000 years ago. Long story short, in his first attempt, he gets his ass whooped, just like Invincible in season 1 finale. So his weapon almost gets damaged, and it's almost like he had one durability point on his weapon. So just one damage block, and it's almost broken now. He doesn't have metal parts, by the way, so I guess he has to go to Haran to get that weapon fixed. So then he decides to be like, well, I am not a hero. I'm a noob. I'm just gonna go and be a little pussy and walk away. And she's obviously disappointed. She's also demotivated. She tries to pull off the whole anime motivational speech once again, but that doesn't work on him, surprisingly. And then he just flies away. But then her grandma comes in. It's like a Star Wars Ghost reference, Force Ghost reference. She motivates her, gives her anime motivational speech. And then she's motivated. And then she goes in solo, decides to go in saving Private Ryan movement. And she almost dies. But hey, The Rock comes back because he has to be the good guy anyways. And this is a Disney film, so, you can't have people going away and shit. So he comes in, they save the day. She puts in the stone inside of this ghost, like this Elden Ring boss. Turns out the Mother Nature was the Elden Ring boss. So after they fill her up, she's happy, and the world is happy, and the Scarlet Rot stops spreading. Yay! Honestly, this film was probably the last Disney film that actually had the Disney soul to it. I feel like most Disney films nowadays are just, well, they really feel soulless and cash grabby. This was the last film that kind of had the whole Disney aura to it, you know what I mean? Like, this is probably a 7.5 in my scale. It's good enough, The voice acting is still good, and believe it or not, The Rock actually had some good jokes and one-liners. What do you know, huh? Not so much in the second movie. Oh god. So I'm taking my time on my ride. Yeah, I'm not gonna summarize the entire film. This video is already going on for too long. But basically what you need to know, I'll try to explain the story in Death Stranding terms, because believe it or not, it is kind of similar to Death Stranding. You see, in both Death Stranding and Moana 2, a huge apocalyptic event happens years ago, and you as the protagonist needs to go on a journey so they can connect all the other civilizations that we previously didn't know existed. In Moana 2, they just didn't know they existed. And in Death Stranding, they knew they existed, but they didn't have any way to connect with them. So now you, as the protagonist, needs to save the world and connect the civilizations so we can work together towards a better future. Of course, Death Stranding is much more deeper and all that. It has more plot than what I just explained. And Moana 2 is basically just this. So yeah, that's basically the plot. And starting from the first point, the music is just isn't that good. It's almost like an employee at Disney just kind of wrote in ChatGPT, generate the most generic Disney song. And that's kind of what they got, the most generic Disney song. At least the first movie had some memorable songs, but the second one, most of them are just so bland. Like all of them are skip, like they are hard skip, alright? It's almost like they couldn't hire like actual writers for the song. And honestly, I kind of believe that they generated all the lyrics from ChatGPT because they've already used AI for some of the facial animations. So, I probably won't be surprised if it was true. And then Moana hits a Fortnite dance. I don't know, it was just I don't know, it was just kind of random, I guess. And the second issue probably comes up with, I know this was a huge part in the first film where she just wanted to, go out there and explore, but the tribal people were like, no, we have to stay together. It's part of our tradition. The dad was like, no, it's too dangerous out there. You will die or some shit. But this time around, she doesn't want to go out there. Why? But Flint's, yeah, she has like made friends and shit. She cares about people on her island. Well, what's the difference? Even in the first film, she had people that she cared about. And it hasn't been that long. It's been only 3 years. She's just 19. I don't really get that whole argument that, that she's hesitating to go out there. Yeah, she just wanted to explore just a little bit, not too much. So, that was stupid. So there's this whole section where, she makes up her mind to go out there. There's this baby that's, just a plot device so that she has a motivation to go back to the island as soon as she can. That baby is just a plot device, like nothing more. It's literally just there to be a plot device. Ton of characters are introduced. I don't think the story does a good job of like justifying their existence. Also, why does the curly hair girl has bleach? I know she's the inventor like girl, but how did she bleach her hair? Did she invent bleach? Did bleach exist in the caveman days? Like, how did that happen? So she has her hair bleached somehow. I don't even know. Maybe she has Twitter and Instagram. Maybe she has an iPhone in her pocket. Fuck if I know. And then they basically get a crew together to go on this specific journey. Now keep this in mind, in the first film, the gender fluid water entity carried Moana to, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So why does she need a crew? She basically has an automatic speedboat. Like, she doesn't even have to do anything. In fact, she doesn't even need sails on her boat, dude. She can just make a platform and the water will literally carry her. So I don't even get the entire point. Also, I kind of feel weird, like nobody questions that the water entity, like the water is basically a living thing and it can basically high five Moana. They just go along with it. Fuck, I guess this is very normal. Like, they just admitted, like, yeah, this is pretty normal, even though they have never interacted with something like that before. And yeah, they're basically there for no reason. The water can literally carry them. She does not need a crew, my guy. Like, she has an automatic speedboat that doesn't even need a fuel. And yeah, then we meet the, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Then we meet the trolls, the Mad Max trolls from the previous film. Yeah, they're basically retreading old content because they're out of ideas, I guess. And this was supposed to be a show, so, that's why a lot of these characters just don't really make sense to be here. because they would have been developed in a show. So all of that happens, and the villains aren't that memorable. There's nothing memorable about them. And yeah, the movie ends, and Moana almost dies. And yeah, basically, she outswims. You might want to sit down for this. She outswims lightning. The water slowed down the lightning, of course. So she touches the earth and then earthing, it's just physics, guys. It made so much sense. She outswims lightning, and because she touched the ground, so earthing happened. So she didn't die from the lightning being struck from her. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And then they connect the words, everyone's happy, Bahamba gets over. So yeah, that was the movie. Kind of underwhelming and very mediocre. I think Disney has learned its lesson of making remakes and unintentional sequels that were supposed to be shows. And with the failure of Snow White, I think they have learned their lesson. They've also stopped all the production on remakes and sequels to kind of rethink their life decisions. Like, I think the problem with the film is that the first film had kind of the whole Disney Renaissance era feel. It was the last Disney film that actually had that kind of feel. The second one just didn't have that sort of passion behind it because it's a cash grab, obviously. And kids' movies don't need to suck. They just don't need to. You can make good films, and it can also be for kids. Not everything needs to be edgy. I mean, Ratatouille and Wall-E and Rango, there's a reason why you remember all these films, because you can still go back to them and enjoy it to this day, because there's something for an older audience too, because it has some level of good writing. They obviously cater to kids too, but it also has good writing. The second part just doesn't has that. So yeah, that's pretty much about it.